Hi guys, welcome back to my channel and welcome if you're new. I hope you're all doing well and welcome back to another video. We are back. New video, different setup. Do you prefer this setup? Let me know in the comments down below. But today I'm going to show you guys how I'm tracking my reading for 2023. There's a lot of new elements this year, so I thought it'd be fun to give you a little bit of a rundown. I'm using 4 different methods this year. That sounds intense, but most of them are pretty easygoing. So of course I have the classic Goodreads, where I'm just tracking the numbers of books I'm reading because I like having myself the reading challenge each year. And then we have Notion. Last year was the first time I used Notion for tracking my overall reading and book buying kind of habits in the year, and I loved looking back and kind of just adding it all up and seeing it accumulate over the year in Notion. So I've brought Notion back for 2023. The next one is another simple one, and that is my bullet journal. I will show you a flip through of my bullet journal and show you how I'm tracking my reading in 2023. And then also we finally have Cawpile. I used to use Corepile quite a few years ago. I went off it, which I'll explain later in the video, and I'm giving it another go in 2023. So I have 4 methods of tracking my reading this year, and I'm really hoping after setting all those 4 things up, I continue on this upward climb of reading fantastic books and being in a reading mood. So at the end of the year, I have these beautiful accumulated stats and figures and just all round wonderful things regarding my 2023 reading. So without further ado, let's hop into the video. I'm now recording my screen. We're going to start with Notion because I love Notion. We're currently in my YouTube tracker, which is a whole different video if you would like to see that. We are focusing obviously on reading today, so let's go to my reading page. A lot of it stayed the same from last year. I just wanted to simplify last year's one because I am using Cawpile this year, and that contains a lot more of the stats, and it gives me beautiful bar graphs and pie charts and line graphs and all these really pretty things to record my reading. So I didn't really need to go really in depth with Notion. And what I found from last year with Notion is that although it looked really pretty at the end, it was really hard to actually break down my stats unless it was kind of like calculated by adding up. So it could add up all the books I read, it could calculate the percentages if I had tick boxes, but if I put the genre as contemporary, it couldn't really track how many contemporary books I read against how many mystery books I read, for example. So that's why I've started to use Corepile again. So my Notion is a lot more simple, but I'm really excited to use it as well this year because I'm trying to use Notion more as a book review database more so than statistics. So let's start with the top. On the left hand side we have my monthly TBR. As you can see, for January, as I'm filming this, I only have 2 books on there because I have just got back from holiday, so I didn't want to overload my TBR with lots and lots of books, seeing as I also am coming out of a slump. So I just put 2 books on there that I'm really excited to read. Luckily, I have read both of those and I'm on 2 different books, but I just didn't want to overwhelm myself. And then on the right hand side, something that I started at the tail end of last year is a reading calendar, and this basically just allows me to schedule in when I want to read books, and it's just a really good visual representation of my month in terms of reading. So I got back from holiday on the 12th and I took a couple days to resettle in because I have just moved house as well. And I started reading on the 15th, so I added in my first book and I kind of calculated how many days I would want the book to take me. If it takes me longer, that's absolutely fine, which is why I love Notion so much. I can actually adjust the dates so simply, which I wouldn't be able to do in another tracker such as my bullet journal. So I can just change the end date to the 22nd if it took me a week to read, and it'll update on the calendar. Obviously it didn't take me a week to read, but it's just so much more fluid that way. And it just allows me not to get stressed being like, oh my god, I need to finish the book today because that's what I've scheduled in. I can just extend my personal deadline, which is brilliant. I'm going to put it back to, what was it, the 19th I finished it? So it's all accurate, and then I can just flick back and forth depending on the months and see kind of how long it took me to read each book and when I started books and exact dates, which is always lovely. So that's kind of how I use my reading calendar. It's literally just a visual representation of when I wish to start and when I wish to finish books. And then we come on to my 2 databases that I'm using in 2023. My first one is my book haul kind of database, which is just a place where I can track every single book I have brought this year or that was gifted to me. From left to right, we have a tick box for read. So far I have read 28% of the books I have already hauled this year. And then we have the title of the book, self-explanatory, The author of the book, self-explanatory, but the title one does calculate exactly how many books I have hauled because it totals the number of horizontal lines I've created in a database. And then we have the month, just so I can kind of keep on top of how many books I'm buying per month. So far, I've accumulated 7 books in the month of January. We're off to a great start. And I have spent so far £30 on books. We have format, gifted and reason. So I go on to what's really changed in my Notion, and that is my books read in 2023 database. We have the title. Once again, we have the emojis because I loved doing the emojis so much last year and they really added a little bit extra spice to my Notion template. And then we have the author, the page count, the genre, the rating, you know, all the usual things. And then we go on to 2 brand new sections for a database, and these are 100% inspired by the booktube channel The Story Ain't Over. I love her channel so much. And in her Notion template, she has a 1-line review and a description. So at the end of the year, when she's creating all these end of year book content videos, best books, worst books, all the books I've read, etc., she has a really quick rundown of what the book is about and her initial thought and feelings. And I thought it was a really an easy thing to add to my database to help my future self. And I'm all about at the minute helping my future self and creating the best version of myself for my future self. So 1-line review basically is what it says. It's a 1-line review of the book I've just read. So at the end of the year, when I've forgotten every single book I've read because I read so many, manifesting, yes, I can come back to this database and I can be like, oh, okay, so The Girls Are Good was a book that promised so much but disappointed on every level, and I didn't get the point of the story. Like, it's a just quick capture of what I actually thought about the book as soon as I finished it. And then I have a description, so I don't have to keep rereading every single blurb of every book. I write what the book is about in my own words, for videos, for wrap-ups, for end-of-year reviews, etc, etc. And then a new one as well, which I thought would come in handy for reviewing books, which I want to get better at this year, is a trigger warnings section, which I just list every single trigger warning that was mentioned in that book. So for reviews, I can let you guys know exactly what the book entails in case any of you have trigger warnings or content warnings, etc. And then we have the month I read it, obviously self-explanatory, how I acquired it. Last time I had 2 separate sections for this, but I wanted to just merge the 2 together. So I have, the options I have for this one is TBR, library, Scribd, gifted and myself. So basically it will either be physical TBR from the library or from Scribd, and then I can either add whether it was gifted or whether I brought it myself. That's kind of how I've done that one. So for example, when I read Grown by Tiffany D. Jackson, it was on my physical TBR, but it was gifted to me for Christmas from Emily. So I have both of those tags on that one. And we just have 2 tick boxes this time round because Cawpile is capturing so much more in-depth stats over on that spreadsheet. So for Notion, all I have is whether it was diverse and whether it was a reread. So diverse can count as author, character, nationality, race, sexuality, any of that kind of umbrella. I just like keeping a track on it so I can improve on my personal stats. And then reread just because I like seeing how many books I've reread, because I do love rereading books. So that is my Notion. A much more simple Notion template this time round than 2022. If you want to see my 2022 one, I'll link it up above and down below just so you can get a difference of what's changed and what hasn't. And then, shall we move over to Goodreads? You've all seen Goodreads before, like it's not that difficult to navigate, everyone is familiar with it. I only use Goodreads because I like their yearly reading challenge, and this year, as always, I've set myself 50 books. I always think, should I do 52 because then that's technically 1 book a week? I can't get rid of that round number of 50. I can't. And I'm pleased to say I'm actually on track. I'm very surprised I'm on track, but I am on track. So all I use Goodreads for is the reading challenge, and I do update my Goodreads if you want to follow me. I do update it every time I start a book and when I finish it. Say I finish Influential, I haven't. Say I have. All I do is give it the star rating and I post it. I don't do reviews on here, and if I do, it's very rarely. I just don't see the point inputting reviews on Goodreads. I know that's really bad. Maybe I should get into the habit of, but I just always give myself the goal to review books more often on Goodreads, and then I always fail. So I'd rather just, when I feel so inclined, I will write a review on Goodreads. If I don't feel so inclined, which is 90% of the time, I won't put a review on Goodreads. So that's how I basically use Goodreads. nice and simple. It's basically just a way for me at the end of the year to see all the books I've read in pretty cover format, because obviously you get all the pretty covers on Goodreads. That's kind of mainly why I use Goodreads. And finally, this is my Cawpile for 2023. Cawpile, if you don't know, is a book spreadsheet created from G over at the Book Roast. I'll link her channel up above and down below if you want more in-depth kind of explanation on what this is. It basically just gives you a whole list of things to fill out regarding each book you've read over the year, and then at the end of the year you can change your spreadsheet tab to your primary stats, and you get lots of pretty tables and bar graphs and pie charts and line graphs and all that fun stuff, which I obviously explained in why I'm not cracking my stats in Notion this year, because why wouldn't you want to see it all like this? It's so pretty. So that's how I'm tracking my reading most in depth this year, is via Corepile. I'm really hoping I can keep up with it. And if you don't know what Corepile is that you rate the books out of 7 categories. Hence the name Corepile. You have characters, atmosphere, writing, plot, intrigue, logic, and enjoyment. Characters, self-explanatory, how much did you enjoy the characters, how much did the characters develop, etc. Atmosphere, did you feel nice and cozy reading the book? Did you think the atmosphere for a horror was well done? Do you think the atmosphere for contemporary was well done? That sort of thing. And you grade each one of these out of 10. And then you have writing, did you enjoy the writing? How well did you think it was written? Plot, did you think the plot was good? Did you think it was well paced? All this sort of stuff. Intrigue, were you intrigued across the entire book? Did you have no intrigue or interest at all? Logic, was it very logical? Was there really stupid things in there that you just like kind of made you come out of the story? And then finally, enjoyment. How was your overall enjoyment for it? And there is a little Cawpile cheat sheet at the bottom that kind of gives you the categories that you kind of need to rate from. So you have like a 1 to 3 was really bad, a 4 to 6 was mediocre, a 7 to 9 was really good, and then 10 is outstanding. And then those numbers that you input, so for me, I gave Grown a 9 across the board. So 9 for characters, atmosphere 9, writing 9, plot 9, intrigue 9, logic 9, enjoyment 9. It gave me a 5-star rating based off the calculations that Corepile does, which obviously G figured all out and is amazing. So that's like the main original concept of Cawpile, and I did it a few years ago, and then I kind of got a little bit frustrated that it was dictating what my star ratings were when I kind of wanted to go off gut feeling, which is why I stayed away from it for quite a while. But I miss all the really pretty like graphs and spreadsheets and stuff, so I'm coming back to it, and hopefully I won't get frustrated with it this year. It's going well so far, like so well that I've already given my first 5 stars, which usually if I wasn't using Corepile, Grown probably would have been a 4.5 stars rather than a 5, but Corepile said it was a 5, so I guess it's a 5. I did really enjoy it. It does deserve a 5. And then finally in Corepile, before I get distracted, there's a DNF tick box, so it actually also tracks how many books you've DNF'd this year and each month, which I think is really interesting, because usually if I DNF a book, even if I've read 200 out of the 300 pages in this book, I count it as like never existing, which I guess you still read most of a book, so why doesn't it count towards like your end of year stats sort of thing? So there's a DNF tick box, which I think will be really, really interesting at the end of the year to try to see how many books I actually DNF. I tried to calculate this via Notion last year and it absolutely failed. So this is one of the features that I'm really excited for. And that is how I'm tracking the majority of my reading this year. And finally, let's head over to my bullet journal. So this is my 2023 bullet journal. I love it. I'm precious about it already. I think it's one of my favourite Scribd bullet journals I've used. I just love this a lot. But anyway, back to reading. This is my journal. I have one reading spread in my yearly collection, and that is this one over here that you can't really see because I have a shit filming setup. I will scooch the bullet journal over ever so slightly so you can see it a bit more clearly. It's basically just a plain bookshelf. It's not an original idea, not at all. I've used it in the past for many of occasions, and I'm bringing it back for 2023. And you guys can see I've already read 3 books. So all I'm doing is keeping it black and white because, I don't know, I'm not feeling colour at the minute. I don't want to colour code according to the star rating I give it because I'm very much a 0.5 sort of person, like a 3.5, a 4.5. So I can't really colour code. So I'm staying away from colour, and all I'm doing is writing the title in each book spine. And I didn't want to pre-draw book spines just in case I read less or read more. I just didn't want to give myself too much kind of like restriction in terms of this spread. I just want to be a bit more creative, and I'm kind of drawing the books to the size of the actual books in real life. So thicker books, taller books, skinnier books, etc., just to give the page a little bit more like unique aspect to it. So that's the first bookish spread in my bullet journal for this year. And the next one I have is just for my monthlies. I'll show you January's because it's kind of filled out a little bit more. Where is it gone? Here it is. So I just have the month running vertically down the side, so I break it up per week, and I kind of just give myself an estimate on when I kind of hope to read the books and when I want to finish them. And then just on the right hand side I give myself 5 boxes for a TBR, and then I will draw each box every time I buy a book. Hopefully it doesn't go past 3 or 4 books per month, but you never know. I have hauled 3 in January already, but I've read 2 out of those 3, so I can't complain. So that's basically how I'm tracking my reading in my bullet journal. Very, very simple, and I've done the same for February setup. Month down vertically, TBR and a haul, and that is it. Just something simple that I can capture my reading within my bullet journal, because my bullet journal is a kind of screenshot and a screen grab of my life. And although I'm tracking my reading everywhere else, it would feel wrong, because reading and books are such a key, important part of my life. It would feel wrong not to capture a little bit of it in my bullet journal, just as kind of like a little nod to my reading month each month of my bullet journal, if that makes sense. So that is how I'm tracking my reading in my bullet journal. Very simple, a nice kind of quick capture of my reading every single month. So those are all the ways I'm going to be tracking my reading in 2023. Let me know how you're tracking your reading down below in the comments. I would love to know, am I missing a trick here or there? And with that being said, I will leave you to it. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you give it a massive thumbs up and subscribe down below to see future content from me. I do anything from bookish videos, productivity, lifestyle videos, Disney vlogs. They will continue for the next couple of months, so strap in for lots of them, and lots of other little in-between things relating to my life, because I love sharing it here with you, and I really, really appreciate this little community. So I will see you in my next video. Bye guys.